In this tutorial, we're going to be looking into Next.js, which is the #1 React framework for the web right now. And hello guys, I'm Oliver. I'll be going over this tutorial. If you're new to the channel, make sure you check my other tutorial as well. It's on my YouTube. For this tutorial, all the links and resources will be down below. So GitHub and all the other easy to access resources. I also have a Discord server, so if you are interested in talking to all the other students as well, go ahead and join the Discord server as well. So I'm pretty sure you guys heard about Next.js, with Bristol doing incredible presentation on the technology of Next.js, and also a lot of community talking about how Next.js kind of taking over with React stepping back on the Create React app installation. Instead, they're opting into Next.js installation. So let's talk about Next.js, why you should learn Next.js right now, what are the cool features that comes with Next.js, and why it is the #1 framework right now. And of course, I will also dive into some of the installation process and the structure on what it looked like on the code base as well. So this is gonna be a full YouTube series, so make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to my channel. A lot of tutorial will be coming up in the next coming week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And let's jump right into. So in the homepage of nextjs.org, you can see it says used by some of the world's largest companies. I mean, they're not exaggerating when they say that. I will show you the company Next.js is being used by. And beside that, Next.js enables you to create a full stack application. That means you can write both front end and back end code using the same framework, which is Next.js. So they have like a nice way to write the API and also write the front end code in the same structure, which make things really easy. So really big part on that. And by extending the latest React feature, of course, which we will talk about in more details in the upcoming series, and integrating powerful Rust-based JavaScript tooling for faster build. So this is some of the optimization they're talking about, and we will talk into it in a little bit more depth. We will also dive into each of these in separate tutorials. My goal of this whole overview playlist course is going to be make sure we understand every bit and pieces of Next.js. So we will spend a lot of time learning about all this in the future. So some of the foundation is, of course, is built on top of React. And for those of you who are new here, this series will need you to know about React. So if you use React before, which is really, really great for you, you can like start this course right away. So we'll be writing React because Next.js, of course, use React. And then they have like a lot of cool turbo pack built on Rust, super fast, like a bundler. And then you also have like a compiler, which is based on Rust as well. So make things a lot more optimized and speed. And really cool deployment process. I think Vercel is separate itself with their deployment process because it also comes with analytics, which I really like. I deployed a couple of websites using their Vercel deploy, and it's really awesome. So let's check some of the features and who are using it. So first thing first, why is really big deal right now? Because I think if you learn Next.js right now, your future is going to be pretty much secured because a lot of big companies are jumping into using Next.js. So if you are trying to get a job, I think having Next.js under your belt will be really useful for you. And these are some of the companies, Loom, AWS. AWS is using on their homepage. I think they're using it on their Audible page as well. We have Washington Post. We have Basement using their Next.js as well. So these are some of the stats. Of course, it's really popular. So Netflix, TikTok, Twitch, Hulu, Notion, Target, Nike, HBO Max, Realtor, like all the big guys right now, all the app that you use are using Next.js. So I can't stress this enough. It's definitely the best time to get into Next.js. So, I guess I hyped you guys up a little bit with this, and let's jump into the main details of why you should, learn Next.js. So why it is the talk of the town, I guess, like they have like really cool features, and some of the main features are routing. Now, when it comes to routing, they have a lot of optimization that take place behind the scene. So you don't have to do a lot of, manual optimization by yourself. The routing basically take cares of it. And we are going to be covering Next.js 13.4 and onward. So all the new features, we're going to be talking about it and understanding every bits of details of it. So routing is one of the first part, which is the app router they introduce. So basically it supports layout, nested routing. They have like a loading state and error handling built into it. So I'm not sure if you use the error boundary or React Suspense when you were working with React, but that is basically built in here. So loading state is basically React Suspense behind the scene, and error handling is like error boundary on the React side of things. So it's super easy to use this feature, and we will definitely dive into it. The other feature is, of course, the rendering. Now, client and server side rendering with client and server component. So this is one of the cool part I think that Next.js included is before Next.js and React 18, you used to use client-sided rendering only because React was client-sided all the time, which means client basically means the browser. So everything happened on the browser. That means all the heavy JavaScript lifting you were doing was happening on the browser. And if for some reason the client, the user had a slower internet, it would be a really problematic situation to render the whole thing on the client, because if they have a slower internet, the JavaScript will take a little bit longer to load, and it will not be a pleasant experience for the users to see the website load up. So in that case, React introduced something called a server component, and Next.js kind of build on top of that. They added the rendering on that. So right now, by default on the latest Next.js, everything is server component. So everything is being rendered on the server and then it's sent on the client to load the data. That's it. So if you have a slower internet, you don't have that problem anymore. It's going to be a lot easier and faster. So user have a better experience. And you can also opt into client side. Like if you're using some use state or any React hook, you need to be using client side, so you can opt into the client side component as well. And in terms of rendering, when you're doing client or server side rendering, you can use something called static and dynamic rendering. This is more like to optimize your situation. So to differentiate a little bit, we're gonna have like a whole lesson on this. So if you're getting confused, don't worry at all. I will make sure you understand that when we are talking about this. But basically, you can do server and client side rendering. And on top of that, if you want to optimize those a little further, you can do static and dynamic rendering as well on top of client and server side rendering, which basically means if you're doing static rendering, you can cache your data on a CDN. So for those of you who don't know, CDN is basically a cloud hosting. So if you are caching some data, that means it's hosted on the cloud. You don't need to load that data all the time. It's going to be basically known to your application. So it's a little faster loading times. Dynamic is you don't have the cache capability, so it's a little different, but we're gonna talk about that. And there's also the streaming side of things, which is a little bit more on the server component, server rendering associated with the streaming side of things. So yeah, we're gonna look into that. I know I'm like talking a lot on that. I shouldn't be confusing you guys, but stay tuned for this and all this tutorial. The next comes is the data fetching. So Next.js use the web API fetch, but they kind of like enhanced a little bit. That means when you're doing a fetch API call on Next.js, you basically have a couple of different features that comes with it that Next.js added. So you can like validate, revalidate, when you can tell the data fetching that when it becomes stale, when we should refresh the data. So we have like a lot of control over the data fetching side of things. So just a little bit overview. Next.js also recommend you, whenever you're trying to fetch data, they recommend you to use server component, because fetching the data on the server is a lot faster and you have like a lot of greater benefit as well, the SEO benefit. But you also sometime you will be using client data fetching, like in React. When you were using fetching any kind of data fetching, you use effect, which is a client sided. So when you were using use effect client sided fetching, Next.js recommend you use something like SWR or React Query. I will have a tutorial on that as well, so don't freak out. I'll make sure we have it all base covered. So we're gonna do that, cover that as well. For styling, Next.js use a very modern styling approach. That means you have CSS modules, so you can like every styling will be scoped to a specific file. So you can name any kind of common class names, and it will be rendered and scoped to only that file you're talking about. You'd also ship with Tailwind CSS, like you can opt into Tailwind CSS right when you install Next.js, which we're going to show you. I'm going to show you in a little bit. You can also use CSS in JS. I like Tailwind a lot, so I also have like a tutorial on Tailwind, so if you guys can check it out if you are new to Tailwind. Optimization side of things, images, font, script optimization, it gives you a lot of flexibility. Next.js kind of breaks the barrier when it comes to optimization. So image, they optimize image in a really great way. It's all is done behind the scenes. So you don't have to specify anything to optimize the image. You just grab the image component from the Next and you just have the image optimized for you. The font, they have a really cool way to use font, and they have like Google font built in, so you can just grab whatever font you need straight from the app, because it's built in on the Next.js application as well. Script optimization, very cool way they kind of optimize some of the script, so get it away from the user client and make the app more faster. And TypeScript, of course, you can use TypeScript with more error-proof application. You gotta go with TypeScript. API, they updated to API design throughout the Next.js. They have like an API section as well. We're gonna explore that as well. But for the most part, this is where the routing, rendering, data fetching, and optimization is where most of the part is. The API is also a cool place. We're gonna learn how to do the API design. Yep, that's a great I think main feature to talk about on the Next.js side of things. And I know it was a lot, but in the upcoming lesson I will make sure I clear everything out one by one. We go over all of these in more details. So let's get started, right? So what do you need to work with Next.js? First thing you need is a Node 16.8 or later version. So make sure you go here, download the latest node. I'm not sure which one you have, but I have 18, one of the 18 actually. So if you have anything less than 16.8, make sure you update the node version from here. Otherwise, you go here and download it. So of course you need a PC, Linux, or Mac, and this is how we install. So use npx create next app at latest. So let's jump on to the VS Code and see how Next.js look like. So one last thing before I start is that I have a free Next.js guide, totally free. All you have to do is go to this link, it's going to be down below, and grab the guide. For any future references, this is a really handy guide. So everything will be explained in details with easy to read diagrams of all the features that Next.js have available. The reason why I built this guide is because in the future you might have an interview or things like that. You might need to remind some of these features. So this is why I made the guide. If you have an interview coming up, make sure you skim through the guide. You have all the knowledge retained, because it comes with really easy to understand diagram, which will makes it very easier for you to get into these things and topics. So yeah, grab the free guide and let's jump back into the tutorial. So right now I'm here in my YouTube folder. So like I said, in order to install Next.js, remember we have to do this, which is npx create dash next dash app at latest. So let's do that. npx create dash next dash app at latest. I click on enter, and it's going to tell you a couple of different names. We'll name it next playlist because I'm going to do a YouTube playlist tutorial. I don't want to do a TypeScript. Would you like ESLint? I don't want a ESLint. Would you like Tailwind? Yes. Would you like src directory? I will say no. App router should be yes, which is the new features. Highly recommend. So yeah, of course. And then customize import alias. We don't want that. So once that installed, I'm going to go to my playlist folder, and then I'll open up the VS Code over there. So I have my VS Code open onto the application that I installed, which is create next app at latest. This is what it looked like. So Tailwind, it already came with the Tailwind configuration for us, which is really nice. We have the next config here. We can like say what we want in the configuration on the next. JS config, which is the path. It's going to be all add path. And we have the app here. So this is like the app router, which is basically all the Next.js file going to be coming in here. Now, right before we start, let's start our server. So npm run dev and see what it look like. This is going to be in the localhost 3000. So I'll open that one up. So this is what it looks like. So Next.js starter template. Okay, so now let's look into the code a little bit more. And then in the next lesson, we're going to jump into all the specific feature that is included in here. So first thing first is the page in here. You can see we have like whole page. This is basically the whole thing that we just saw on the server, on the local host. So hello Next.js, see what it does. Change to hello Next.js. That means we kind of deleted everything else and we just have that, and this is just a Tailwind CSS. Now we have a layout folder. Here we have the layout. That means we can have like a layout that does navigation and footer, and the children is basically the page. Everything inside the page known as children. So this is basically the children. They're injecting the page in here because we can do like a nav bar. Let's write nav bar in here. Left right footer in here. So we can see we have nav bar, we have footer, and this is the children. The children is everything inside the page. So the layout kind of act like that. So it kind of wraps the children. So whatever you have on the page, it's going to wrap it. And then you can see we also have some metadata here. This is really good for SEO. You can also go a little bit crazy on this. We're going to be discussing that in future like optimization section of our tutorial. But right now you can see we have a title, and if you go to inspect and we go to head, and we can see we have a title, we have a description in here. We also have a title somewhere in here. Let's see, title, create next app, and description is generated by create next, which is right here. So this is SEO. This helps your page to be discovered by search engine, which is really cool. And you can see we have like the font, like I told you, Next also have Google font integrated. So it's just grabbing the inter font from the Google and it's just injecting in here. So that's the layout pages, and we have the global CSS, which is also CSS module you can use as well. So yep, that's basically it. That's the project look like, and you can go and play around with it. And in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about routes and layout in more details, and we will show you how to incorporate other things from the app layout as well. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and check out all my other tutorial as well. I have a Next.js full stack course, which is a little fast paced. So this is why I'm doing this. I want to make sure you understand everything that there is in Next.js. So I will be creating like a bite-sized tutorial, or not a bite-sized, but a more in-depth tutorial on each of this topic. So we have a more hands-on approach in learning this thing. And that's my philosophy pretty much, that in order to learn something, you need a more of a hand-on approach than just copy pasting code. So make sure if you really enjoy this, make sure you grab my free guide, like, subscribe, join my Discord, and follow me in my socials. So see you on the next tutorial.